Okay, today I'm going to talk about the changing views of Johan Maurits and the Mauritshuis collection. It's about rethinking the colonial background of the name giver of the Mauritshuis, Johan Maurits of Nassau-Siegen. But it's also about rehanging or reinstalling works of art from our collection that have a direct link with colonial history and specifically also the history of slavery. And in doing so, giving these works a much more prominent location in the collection, making it possible to share all the stories that they can tell in a much better, fuller, and also more contextualized way. I would like to start with just this sunny view of the Mauritshuis. Probably a lot of you know the museum, but still to give a bit of an introduction, as Quinten already said at the beginning of this Congress, the Mauritshuis opened as a museum in 1822. So next year we will celebrate our anniversary. The core of the collection of the Mauritshuis comes from the paintings from the former Dutch stadholders. Therefore, this is also the royal collection, and therefore its full name, Royal Picture Gallery Mauritshuis. But of course, the Mauritshuis isn't a 19th century building. It comes from the 17th century. It's this beautiful example of Dutch classicist architecture, and it was built specifically as a home to Johan Maurits, Count of Nassau-Siegen. And therefore, also the name Mauritshuis. It's very hard to pronounce for a lot of people I know, but in Dutch it means House of Maurits. And this painting by Jan de Baan was especially acquired for the museum in 1822 when the museum opened. And this, in a way, also shows how Johan Maurits has always played an important role in the museum right from the start. Mauritshuis, being an art museum, a paintings museum, also means that the narrative on Johan Maurits in the museum always had a quite strong focus, exclusive perspective on his importance to art, architecture, and science. But there's much more to the story, because Johan Maurits also played an important role in Dutch colonial history, especially the Dutch involvement in the transatlantic slave trade. Johan Maurits was a German nobleman. He was a nephew of the Dutch stadtholder, and he worked as a young man for the Dutch state army. And he was also the governor general of the first large plantation colony of the Dutch Brazil, in the northeastern part of Brazil. When Johan Maurits was governor general, the Dutch became, for the first time, truly active in the transatlantic slave trade. As I just said, Dutch Brazil was a plantation colony. Sugar production, that was what it was all about. There were large sugarcane plantations, sugar mills that were fully reliant on the forced labor of enslaved African men, women, and children. And this is crucial to the history of Dutch Brazil, and therefore also should play a large part in the narrative on Johan Maurits, also at the Mauritshuis. But for a long time, visitors to the museum wouldn't find any information on that in our permanent collection. Also, when we look at paintings in our collections, like this work, also by Frans Post, it's in the collection since the 1950s. And Frans Post was one of the artists who went to Dutch Brazil with Johan Maurits. He took with him an entourage of artists, cartographers, and scientists, together with, of course, a lot of soldiers. And when you look at all their texts or labels in connection to this painting at the Mauritshuis, you see there's this strong focus on art historical information. The texts are about how this painting is the first painting we know of by Frans Post. That is probably the first painting a European artist made of this part of the world, and also made in Brazil itself. There's information about topographical elements, but there's not much information on the people in the painting. And if so, very briefly or even incorrectly. Of course, here we see two European men. They are Portuguese, by the way. To the left and to the right, there are two enslaved men with African roots. And it's this lack of information on the people behind these paintings, the history behind these paintings, and the history behind Johan Maurits, for which the museum has been heavily criticized a few years ago, and something which we also took very serious. One of the many ways in which this has impacted the museum is a reinstallation that was ignited by our former director, Emily Gordanger. This is a picture from 2018, but the reinstallment was at the end of 2017. This was a small reinstallment. It was concise. It consisted of two Frans Post paintings and a painting attributed by Albert Eckhout, and a small but important terracotta sculpture, 18th century sculpture, but it shows Johan Maurits's likeness when he was governor of Dutch Brazil. And this installation, however concise, was the first time in the permanent collection of the Mauritshuis there was a dedicated space to share more of the contextualized history of Johan Maurits in the museum, also acknowledging his role in the transatlantic slave trade. But much more happens in the meantime. And as Femke already told us, there was this exhibition in 2019, which I curated, Shifting Image in Search of Johan Maurits. And this, of course, was a temporary exhibition, but also very important to me personally and professionally as a curator. It was quite transformative, but also impacted the museum. This mostly had to do with the text labels in the exhibition. As I said earlier, we used at Mauritshuis, we used to write about these artworks from a very exclusive art historical perspective. So for this exhibition, instead of writing just one text by the museum for every artwork, we choose to do it very differently and invite a very large group of people, over 45 people, an international group of experts, with a diverse professional and personal backgrounds to share their perspectives and narratives on these paintings in the text labels, resulting in several texts with every artwork showing a truly multi-perspective, multivocal view on the history of Johan Maurits and Dutch Brazil. What was also important to the museum is that we made this exhibition without any loans, but only with paintings from our permanent collection. And here you see all the works that were in the exhibition, also including a letter. And apart from the letter, all these works were normally also on permanent display in the museum. And by using these works for the exhibition and working together with this large group of people, we were able to learn so much and learn from different perspectives, learn to work together with people outside the museum, people who weren't art historians, but had very many different professions. And we started to think about ways how to transform this temporary exhibition to something permanent. Last year, our new director, Martine Gosselink, she was former head of history of the history department at the Rijksmuseum and also involved in the slavery exhibition. She had from the beginning of her of starting as director, she had this strong wish to strengthen the presentation on Johan Maurits in the collection. And as a result, as a team, we worked on an installment of this room. Quinten was also of importance, of course, to this project. And instead of having this small room on the upper floor of the museum, which I showed earlier, to have a larger prominent gallery in the museum fully dedicated to the history of Johan Maurits, including a lot of the artworks that were already shown and researched for the Shifting Image exhibition. And this is, unfortunately, not many people have seen it yet. I'm really looking forward to the reopening next week of the museum, and I hope to be able to hear from a lot of people what they think of this presentation. It has only been open for a few weeks last year. So there are, of course, portraits of Johan Maurits, portraits of European princesses with black servants, a format that was highly popular in the 17th and 18th century, the terracotta of Johan Maurits, and of course also the paintings by Frans Post and Albert Eckhout. And with the interpretation labels, we learned so much from making the Shifting Image exhibition. Now, of course, we did choose for a single label on the wall, but we're also working now on a multimedia tour, including a lot of perspectives from many angles on these artworks, but also other works from the collection. What's interesting is that these works have always been on permanent display, and I want to show some images of the locations they were formerly installed. For instance, the Frans Post and the Eckhout painting, for a long time, they were installed in this showcase in what we call the Potter room. To the left, you can only see a bit of the frame of this monumental bull painting by Paulus Potter. So these two paintings were in the showcase, and of course it's better than not showing them at all, but you can imagine that for a lot of visitors, they completely overlook these paintings or also not understand what's the importance of these paintings to the history of the Mauritshuis and Johan Maurits. It's not possible to offer any context. And the same is true for the Johan Maurits portraits. During those 200 years, it's already at a museum. Of course, it has been installed in many places, but here you see it in a picture still from our virtual museum, pictures that were taken just a few months before this large reinstallment, that it was hung in our staircase, and therefore hard, but maybe even dangerous to look at it with a multimedia tour. The same is true for this portrait by Adriaan Hanneman. And this mountains painting, which was hung up high on the wall in our staircase room at the second floor of the Mauritshuis. So all these paintings were on view, but they were scattered around the building. And it was very hard to share a full and in-depth story for them. There's also, I want to conclude with this painting that is, of course, very important in respect to representation of Black people in 17th century Dutch art, but also for representation of Black people in Dutch or European museum spaces. It's a painting that was also part of the Shifting Image exhibition, but it's not installed in this new room on the first floor of the museum, because it was already part of the Mauritshuis canon, being a painting, of course, by Rembrandt. There's a lot of interest and attention to this painting lately, also because of research on the community of Black people, people with African roots in Amsterdam in the 17th century. I want to note the work of the historian Mark Ponte, especially in this situation. And therefore, we know much more about the men that are shown on this painting. We don't know exactly who they were. We don't know their names, but we do know that they were part of this community of free Black people living in the area around the Jodenbreestraat. And with this new research, but also with this focus on representation, this painting is very influential and important to a lot of people. And of course, last year, there already was the CODART focus on this important, exhibition, Black in Rembrandtstijd, at the time at the Rembrandthuis Museum. And Stephanie Archangel, one of the curators of this exhibition, was inspired. Her first idea of this exhibition, how it all started, was because of this painting by Rembrandt. But because this is the room where it's permanently on view, because it was part of the bequest of Abraham Bredius to the Mauritshuis, who stipulated that his paintings could never leave the museum. It wasn't possible to loan it to the Rembrandthuis exhibition. But fortunately, there was this beautiful modern version of the painting done by the photographer Sigdem Yüksel. I want to conclude with this moving photo, which I share with permission of Deborah Cameron. We see Deborah in this picture together with her baby son. And I'm sharing this picture because Deborah is very important also to the museum. She has worked on several projects with us, including Shifting Image exhibition. And she is currently also working on the project with the multimedia tour of the museum, sharing her perspectives on her favorite paintings. And she wanted to show this painting, specifically this painting, to her son during his first museum visits he ever made, because it's so important to show him that that there's this legacy of Black people in Dutch community already since the 17th century. And with this picture, I want to say and conclude that as curators, we think a lot about ways to make sure that the old masters will stay relevant in current and future times. But this picture shows that they will. Perspectives change, narratives will change, installations will change, and canons will change. But these works of art will stay relevant, I'm sure. And in some cases, like this one, will even be more relevant than ever before. Thank you.